Charlie Kaminsky.
What do you do for a living, Ms. Kaminsky?
Well, I was born in Brooklyn, and I've been driving cars since I was like 12 years old, so it seemed like a natural transition into driving limousines for a living. I actually own my own business. I'm a bit of an entrepreneur. It's called Always Am Available Auto Transportation, Quad A Luxury for short.
Now, what is Quadruple A Luxury Transportation?
Like I said, Quad A Luxury is a limousine service, and we'll pick up pretty much anybody within 50 miles of Midlands.
What areas do you usually service?
Mainly Rock the World and Chuggies, but we'll pick up pretty much anywhere.
Now, Ms. Kaminsky, you've mentioned Rock the World. How familiar are you with it?
Well, I actually grew up driving the bumper cars. That's where I first learned how to drive cars, actually. And it helps that I get a lot of my business from there. Excuse me. It helps that I get a lot of business from there because I get to hang out at the park a lot.
Have you ever had any interactions with the employees there?
Yeah, I've talked to J.C. Longstreet, Whit Bowman, and Cameron Poole. I've had some weird experiences with that one.
What do you mean?
Well, one time I was going to buy my ticket, and Cameron was working the ticket booth, and there's two types of tickets you can buy. You can buy the World Tour, or you can buy the regular wristbands. And of course I was buying the World Tour so I can get my extra rides on the bumper cars. And he did this weird sleight of hand technique, where he took the money that I gave him and put it in a different pile, and then he took a wristband from a pile that the wristbands don't normally come from and gave it to me.
Now, we're here today to discuss the events on August 30th, 2012. What were you doing that day?
Well, I was just at the park, minding my own business, waiting around for some customers to contact me, when I got this text message from a number that I didn't recognize.
What did the message say?
Well, basically, the message said that if I met them later that night at the grocery store that was like a mile away from Rockter World, that they'd give me some business. And I asked them who they were and what was going on because I was really confused because, like I said, it was the number that I didn't recognize. And they didn't answer any of my questions. They just said that they would give me $300 if I showed up at the grocery store 15 minutes after they texted me later that night.
Did they text you again?
Yeah, so around 9 p.m. they texted me, and I was very confused at this point, so I got out of line at the Tunnel of Terror just to go do my job, and suddenly the park broke out in chaos.
What do you mean?
Well, Cameron Poole was being chased by this security guard, and I wanted to help, but honestly I was really confused and I had a job to do, so I just went to the grocery store at that time.
Now, once you got to the grocery store, did you meet the person who was texting you?
Not at first. I was just sitting there looking around waiting for my client, and Cameron Poole came out of the woods and he said that he was my client, and he handed me like $400, and at that point I was so confused and I didn't know what to make of it, but I had a job to do, so I let him get in my car and took him to the marina.
Did anything happen during your drive to the marina?
Well, Cameron asked me to put up the privacy window that separates the driver from the passenger, and he said he was going to make a few phone calls, so I went ahead and raised that, but I gotta admit I was a little bit curious, and I left the speaker on so I could hear all the conversations that he was making.
So you mentioned a few conversations. What did you hear in the first conversation?
Well, the first conversation was on speakerphone, and I heard Whit Bowman on the other line. And Cameron had told him, things got crazy, so I took your knife and I robbed Haley Floyd, and then I dashed.
What happened next?
That's when Whit seemed really upset with Cameron at that point, and he started yelling at him, and he said, I never wanted anything like this to happen. That's when Cameron told him to stay quiet.
Your Honor. Hearsay. The witness is explained in a conversation that took place out of court between Cameron, a conversation that happened in her vehicle between Cameron Poole and someone else on the phone.
Okay, well you didn't object the first couple of questions about it, so those are out, but she just testified to Whit Bowman's statements, so you're objecting to hearsay to those statements now?
To the entire conversation, Your Honor, yes.
Okay, you can't object to the entire conversation because you missed the first one, and she's already been answering about it, but you can object to what her most recent answer was, which was Whit-Bowman statements. Is that what you're objecting to?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Do you have a response?
Whit-Bowman's statements are inception hearsay under 803.1 presence of impression. Cameron Poole is talking to Whit-Bowman about the conversation while the robbery is still in action, while it's still occurring.
The robbery was still occurring in the car?
Yes, Cameron Poole is now in his getaway car.
Your Honor, opposing counsel has not laid foundation as to who the person on the other end of the phone was. She just said it was with Bowman, but she hasn't laid foundation as to how she know it was with Bowman.
Is this now lack of foundation objection?
All right, so your response to the hearsay objection to Whit-Bowman's statements is that it's a present sense impression
Yes, Your
because
Honor.
the robbery was still happening?
Yes, Your Honor.
How is it a present sense impression?
Cameron Poole robbed the park and he is now in his getaway car, therefore the robbery is still taking place.
Well, the statements that are being objected to aren't Cameron Poole's statements right now, they're Whit-Bowman's statements.
Yes, presence is impression. Whit-Bowman is responding to Cameron Poole's statement as he's describing what is going on as he's in the getaway car. Therefore, Whit-Bowman's reaction, the statements he made, would be a present sense impression to what Cameron Poole is telling him during the robbery.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
Counsel has not laid any foundation as to how how Mr. Bowman's response to Cameron Poole in the conversation was present expression. She hasn't laid any foundation as to how that's possible.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm just laying foundation as to how this is still, the robbery is still in action. Cameron Poole has not completed his crime. He is still trying to get away from the park, and therefore the robbery is still occurring. He is in the action of getting away.
Okay, but we're not talking about Cameron Poole's statements, we're talking about Whit-Bowman's statements. Now, is Whit-Bowman making a present sense impression?
Yes, Whit-Bowman is responding from his presence is impression. Cameron Poole is speaking to him about the robbery while it's still going on. And Whit-Bowman, hearing what is going on, makes these statements that my witness is testifying to.
Overruled. I'm sorry, you're overruled, you're sustained. The statement will be stricken.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So you mentioned a second phone conversation. What did you hear in that one?
Well, let me just preface this by saying that this phone call was not on speaker, so I have no idea who was on the other line, but it was really interesting based on what I heard.
And what did you hear?
Well, Cameron told the people he was talking to on the other line that we threw it off our trail and he's going to keep quiet. I made sure of it. And that's when he said that he would meet up with the people on the other line at the bar.
So when did you finally drop off Cameron Poole?
That was about 5 minutes after that final phone conversation. He dropped him off at the marina, and that's when he came up to me and told me that he would give me $500 if I kept quiet about the whole thing. But obviously when the police came knocking on my door the next day, I told them everything that had happened. And I don't really know what to make of everything that I heard, and honestly, I'm still confused.
Thank you, Ms. Kaminsky. No further questions.